All right. Had a couple little technical difficulties starting out for a quick second, but welcome to an early Monday edition of Lions Avenue. I'm joined by myself today. Of course, I had the days off of work, so I figured why not give you guys and ladies some early day content. I love doing this. We don't really get too many opportunities to actually do this during the week at all. I know most of you are used to us doing the Saturday morning show, and then everything else for the most part during the week is what it is. But we are officially 7 weeks past the season. Well, 7 weeks into the season, 6 games into the season. Our Lions are currently 4-2, and wanted to do something a little bit different today. I wanted to take a look at the offensive line, which I believe is kind of like one of the unsung heroes of this team, as well as this organization for that matter. Now, if we go back to week one, this was an offensive line that dealt with a whole lot of backlash. After that Green Bay performance, you can take a look at that Green Bay performance and you can kind of chalk it up to what it was. Me, myself, I don't want to make too many excuses for that situation, but I think in part, this was a team that was breaking in some younger offensive linemen. I get Mahogany is a guy that's been around for a couple years now, but he's still relatively new, getting his feet wet in the NFL. Tate Ratledge is a guy that's being broken in as well, right along with Graham Glasgow, who was trying to help him out a lot, chipping a lot as far as week one. And this was also a team that I think run defense wise, not run defense wise, but at least on the interior, they were used to seeing Kenny Clark for the last, 5, 6 years. Kenny Clark is gone now. And then week one was pretty much a brand new version of Green Bay front seven wise that we hadn't seen before. All of those different blitz packages, not so much run defense, even though they did have a very good game run defense wise against us week one, holding us to 46 yards. But this team, also Hank Fraley, offensive line coach who had the opportunity to leave this past offseason. Actually, he was gone. Um, had a deal pretty much in place to become the new offensive coordinator over in Seattle. And then our head coach, Dan Campbell, I'm pretty sure got on the phone and said some choice words to the organization about, hey, listen, I lost my OC, I lost my DC, I lost my defensive line coach, and Tyrell Williams went to New England. I can't lose anybody else. You got to keep this guy right here around for me. And that's what they did. They also, on top of him being in charge of the offensive line, for those who didn't know, Hank is also the run game coordinator. So, all right, after week one, 46 yards on the ground. What was it? 200 yards passing, a little over 246 yards of total offense for this Detroit Lions team. And that was nothing like we were used to seeing the last year, last 2 or 3 years for that matter. So you go on to week two against the Bears. They ran for 177. Baltimore 224, Cleveland 109, Cincinnati 118, and then Kansas City this past week in a very controversial game held us to 98 yards. Now, this offensive line, just to point to some of the parameters and rules of what goes into an offensive line and how to judge them on levels of whether or not they're pretty successful or not. Right now, you're looking at a defense that is, so they hold your team, sixth in the league in attempts, rushing yards, rushing attempts, that is. They're eighth in rushing yards given up. Sorry about that. That's the offense right there. That's the yeah, sorry about that. That's the offense. So right now, defensively, they're eighth in attempts, they're 11th in yards, and they're 17th in touchdowns given up defensively. You look at the offense though, sixth in rushing attempts, eighth in yards, third in touchdowns, 16th in yards per carry at 4.4. Of course, you would like to see those yards per carry come up a little bit. And then if you look at the percentages, red zone percentage, this is a team right now that's third in the league in red zone scoring. They're 13th in the fourth down percentage at 63.6%. And they're currently 15th in third down percentage right now. So in general, this is an offensive line, nothing new to this fan base. This is an offensive line under Hank Fraley that has been damn good the last few years, last couple years for that matter, two and a half. And those numbers point directly to it. Now, I want to get into Hank's presser from a couple days ago. I think he had a few interesting things to say about some players that we will discuss in a little while. And I want to get into that in just a second. Make sure everybody can hear this. And I'm going to play the entire interview, the entire presser, but I'm going to pause doing some sections, give some of my thoughts and opinions on some of the things that Hank had to say. So here we go.
Dan said it's trending the right way for Dak to play Monday night. Just what kind of advantage is that give you guys a 10-year vet who's done it at a high level for a long time? Just what kind of a boost is that for you guys?
Decker's, like you said, he's already done it at a high level. It always gives, I think, a morale boost to everybody all the time. Not taking away from anybody else, but when you've done it and then, a Pro Bowl player, stuff like that, and what Deck brings to the table, it's great. But he is definitely trending in the right direction. And it's good when he's out there. It's one less thing you're ever worrying about. So, but the guys that have to fill in when they're not playing is expected to play at that same level. Is it Geo? Is it Skipper? Is it anybody tackles on the roster? Is it Devin? Those guys' expectations never fall. But Dex doing well. So I like where he's at. Yeah.
Okay. Turn this volume down a little bit because it did peak on me. So, and I want everybody to join in the comment section in the chat. Let me know what you think about this. What up, Brent? Got some of our long time listeners joining in. Brent DeWitt, Howdy Walt, what's up? Yeah, it's me by myself today. What up, Corey? Corey Patterson. I got two of my boys here today. We talking strictly the trenches, offensive line of scrimmage, the offensive line in general, Hank Fraley a little bit. Those of you who just joined in, I'm playing some of Hank Fraley's presser from a couple days ago. And of course, I understand tonight is the major matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to come back in a few hours and break down that game for you guys a little bit, as well as go through the injury reports and so on and so on. But so, first part of that presser was about, well, it was in regards to Taylor Decker, long term left tackle for the Detroit Lions, the one holdover from the previous regime. No problem with Taylor still being there. Taylor's been a high level player his entire career. You can make the argument that Taylor's production, due to lack of health, the past 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years for that matter, has trailed off a little bit. But I will say at the end of the day, man, some offensive tackles' bodies, he's a tall, athletic built type of guy. Some of these guys, not the most stout in the lower body. Some of these guys, I understand that the shoulder injury is what's going on with him now, but Taylor's been nicked up a lot the past few years. Been a good player, been a great soldier, great teammate, everything wonderful for this organization. Never complained about anything. Has took everyone, at least reports wise, I've heard, has taken every offensive lineman that they've drafted since he's been there under his wing, and including Panay Sewell, all pro, all world right tackle. But I think we all are in agreement that left tackle Taylor Decker, going back to draft day when we took Panay Sewell, seventh overall, there were, arguments that entire offseason, that entire summer about whether we were going to move Taylor Decker to right tackle and then play Panay Sewell at left tackle, which is his natural position since high school, Oregon. We only spent 1 year playing. But Taylor's held his own. And I get it. Taylor hasn't been all pro left tackle Taylor Decker. But you can make the argument Taylor has been one of the 12 best left tackles in football the last 3 years. But Father Time catches everybody. So Taylor's body's been failing him a little bit the past few years. He's still giving it all he's got. This is an organization as well as a fan base. I'm included in that wants to see Taylor Decker succeed and wants to see Taylor Decker bring home that Lombardi trophy before he does walk away. But this is a situation where, and we're going to talk about somebody that factors into this right now a little bit later on in the video. But this is a team that, whether you feel the long-term answer is in the locker room right now or the long-term answer is in free agency, Or you may feel that the long term answer for this team at left tackle is in the draft, for 2026. But the writing is on the wall that it's pretty much time to start looking for a replacement. Like I said, Taylor's done everything he can do. Same thing with Frank. Frank could still play, high level player, but at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. Father time catches up with everybody. What's going on, Corey? Says last guy from the Patricia era. Damn right. Damn right. Last guy holding on from the Matt Patricia era. And that says a lot because as much as we trash that regime with all dueness, they did leave us Frank Ragnow and Taylor Decker to kickstart that rebuild. And taking Panay Sewell just escalated everything to a whole nother level. So I want to get back into a little bit more of this presser real quick, and then I'm going to pause when I think there's something else to talk about.
Has obviously replaced all three interior guys, or at least shifted them around in some way. How challenging is it then to, I guess, develop that unit as a whole with Decker not practicing, but then still playing in a lot of the games? How have you approached that?
I think that's where we try to approach it a little bit in training camp and still, and those things to go all the way back there, OTAs, and try to, we were trying to, do a lot of things. We got younger inside, so it was a little bit, you probably didn't move them around as much as you would in the past, but that's where it all starts. These guys have been playing together for a while too, though, especially when it comes to Skipper, Yodi, those guys have been in that role before, so they've done a nice job. And it's really the biggest thing is making sure we get our work in Indy. The fits, communication's always been good. Those guys communicate. Each guy working together has their own little mojo, a little communication, and so it works well. Just making sure you get those fits and gelling. Like I said, the expectation for us is whoever's in there, we don't fall off there. So they've done a nice job over the years being here. We've never had the same lineup, at least since I've been coaching here. We've never played all 16 and now 17 games with one unit. It feels very rare now from when I played a long time ago, but it happens and it's always fun. I know the guys always try.
All right, so that right there, as we get another peak in the volume. So that right there, you heard Hank comment just a little bit on the versatility and the depth that we do have on this offensive line. He mentioned guys like Awolt, Awasika, him, and Skipper. Skipper's another guy, a fan favorite. May not be a top 10 left tackle, may not even be a top 20 left tackle, but he's a top 10 backup tackle, a top 10 swing offensive lineman. And for a lot of fans who felt like, Skipper should have been moved on from, Skip is a guy that holds his own. He steps in a pinch and a bind. He can play multiple positions on the offensive line. And Skip is around for a reason, and you're looking at, he mentioned it right there in the presser. You're talking about helping out guys in Tate Ratledge, who we'll discuss a little bit later in this presser. Miles Frazier, who we will discuss a little bit later in this presser. Even Christian Mahogany. Christian Mahogany is a guy who came out of BC with a ton of talent. 4-year starter, if I'm not mistaken, at Boston College. Had a few health issues coming out of college. Had a couple setbacks, including mono his first year here in Detroit, but came on strong the second half of last season down the stretch and showed us the promise that we knew he had. But in general, you have to keep depth guys around. I know a lot of fans feel that there's this situation where you need 5 all pros on the offensive line, and then the backups need to be all A+ guys. But at the end of the day, you need guys like Dan Skipper and Awasika and Glasgow. And Glasgow isn't an all pro, isn't a pro bowler. Does Glasgow have his games where he's completely overmatched by the athleticism and size of some of these interior defensive linemen around the league? Of course he does. But for the most part, Graham goes out, he's rock steady, and he does his job. Doesn't mean that this team can eventually move on from Graham, but at the end of the day, we know exactly what Graham is. I'm not the biggest Graham Glasgow fan at all, but when it comes down to it, you can count on Graham in the pinch to do his job, whether it's at center, it's at left guard, it's at right guard. You can still count on Graham. So just to touch on that a little bit there, he did start mentioning some of the depth that we do have on that offensive line. And let's get back to some more of this presser from a couple days ago.
We had some mistakes up there, and I would say we've turned it the other way and eliminating it and learning from it. So I think the biggest thing is anything good or bad, are you still learning from stuff? And we're always learning from the good plays to the bad plays. Of course, there was a lot of bad plays that game, and jokingly, we were like, we can't get any worse. We got to go better. So I try to always think of everything as a, half glass or water full. Sorry, I can't even speak up here, but it's always, half glass full. So I always look at the positives and things and take the negatives for what they are and learn from it all. So I think the young guys inside are trending in the right direction. Are they perfect? No. Even, our top guys aren't always perfect, but are always trending, staying steady. And I think that's the difference in the line play is we got to be consistent and stay steady. We're never going to be perfect. We're never going to play a perfect game. We won't be perfect on blocking, technique, anything like that, but we need to be sound. And, we try not to throw fastballs and when I mean like that to the quarterback, and every once in a while there has been, last week there was one, that hurt us. But as long as, if we're going to die a real slow death so we can get the ball out in time. And those guys are trending right, though.
All right, so patience. Everything he said right there alludes to patience along the offensive line. And he said he touched on something that I touched on a few minutes ago before I played some more of that presser. And it's about consistently. Is the offensive line going to be perfect every single Sunday, every single Monday, every single Thursday? Of course not. Um, the game that they had, the performance that the offensive line had week 1 against Green Bay, and you had people calling for him to be fired, John Morton to be fired, Glasgow, go ahead and dump him now, waive him, and this and that. Offensive lines have their games. Remember how good this offensive line was a year ago. And then sometimes is to make the boxing analogy, styles make fights. And what happened when we went into Houston that Sunday night? Houston's defensive front was a terrible matchup for us, especially for a team that had never seen that type of front before and how they get after the quarterback and the techniques that they use to get after the quarterback. Hell, Jacksonville saw it in the first half. Not the first half, but Jacksonville saw it in the first playoff game, wild card game last year in the playoffs. If that was your first time seeing Houston as a team, as an offense, Houston will do that to you. And I had fear that Houston would do that to our offensive line because on the interior, we weren't the most athletic with Glasgow and Zeitler. They're up in age, they're steady, they can do what they do, but there's going to be some games where your offensive line will be outmatched. So I'm going to go back to a little bit more of this presser.
They're right where we want them to be, and I know they're not where they want to be career-wise, but that's going to come. They're still writing their pages in their first chapter of their book, and each week's a new page for that, and it's going well.
So much of their, struggles that week 1 was about communication. When the communication is right, how have they played in your eyes?
I think good. I mean, what I said, we're never perfect. If you just watch our past game, we weren't perfect. At times that cost us, and we need to slow those down. And but I love where they're at. I love how they're playing. They play with their hair on fire. I always call Christian a dirtbag, and that's what I want those guys to be, those guards, and physical, and that's what they like, and they love to pull and hit people, and that's the type of lineman you want to have, and especially being guards in this league when we do a little bit of everything. So they're trending right, so we're right where we want to be. We're not perfect, but we're getting there.
As a rookie, Christian was such an anomaly to be a late round draft pick, to miss so much of the offseason program, and then to be called upon in a game and excel really. I'm wondering, as Miles Frazier's kind of going through a similar routine here, a guy that's not used to being out but has missed a lot of time, what lessons from your coaching experience can you apply that worked with Christian to Miles?
Okay. So now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of this now. So Miles Frazier is a guy who, if you listen to this show exclusively, uh Ashanti and I discussed a lot prior to the NFL draft. He was a guy that we were very high on, was hoping that Detroit would perhaps take him in maybe the second or third round. The NFL, I guess, felt differently about him, regardless of how well he performed at the Senior Bowl. But he fell to the fifth round, and I was ecstatic. Ashanti for damn sure was ecstatic that we got him. You're talking about 6'5", 325 pounds. Right tackle, right guard versatility coming out of LSU. Had an outstanding Senior Bowl of practice. Very high IQ guard that handles blitzes and stunts as well, which is something Coach Fraley just mentioned in that presser. Has impressive mobility and space for his size. Anchors well in pass pro, tough to move offline. Patience, technique, fundamentals. He also had a PFF overall grade of 70.3. Now, before I get back into that, there's a few things I do want to say about Miles because this is a guy that was relatively healthy his entire career at LSU, and he had this injury, this knee injury right here, heading into the season. Missed a ton of spots, ton of experience, opportunities, but he's still there. He's still there, and I want to get into what head coach Dan Campbell because this is the final time. I don't know if anybody else heard anything else from head coach Dan Campbell, Hank Fraley, or anyone else in the organization regarding Miles Frazier, update wise, and what's going to happen with him. But this right here was from head coach Dan Campbell back on September 29th of this year in regards to fifth round pick Miles Frazier. He is progressing not as fast as we had hoped, and I can't say that we won't get him back at some point here. But it's not as clear as, say, like Christian Mahogany was last year, which is something that in this presser, Hank Fraley alluded to. It was very clear at this point that, okay, he's getting healthy. He's starting to feel better. We're not quite there, but he's improving, Campbell said. Now, that's kind of down because we're talking about half a month, little bit, give or take half a month since we've heard anything in regards to Miles Frazier and his health. But we were kind of expecting, at least Ashanti and I discussed this on a few episodes after we found out he was going to be out. We were kind of expecting him to be back maybe mid-November because, honestly, the offensive line didn't really need him, didn't need to rush a fifth round pick out there. We had a lot of guys out there. Now, was it exciting to see two of my favorite offensive linemen out of the LS out of the SEC come to Detroit? That being Miles Frazier from LSU and Tate Rallage out of Georgia, of course. We were very excited to see that this team took the approach of get younger on the offensive line, be good for the next 10 years. And I never knock any organization for trying to make sure they're elite and they're solid rock on the offensive line as well as the defensive line. But I think those quotes from head coach Dan Campbell, they can be a little bit concerning. It's concerning whenever he has that disappointed father type of tone in regards to when he's talking about the health of one of his players. We heard that sort of tone with Rakestraw. We heard that sort of tone, of course, with not Mobley, but Emmanuel Mosley repeatedly, who played maybe 5 downs total for the Detroit Lions. We heard that type of disappointment when he discussed Marcus Davenport, Terrion Arnold. We can go on and go on with some of our favorite Detroit Lions. But this is something I think we should probably be concerned about moving forward. Maybe not this year. We may not miss or need necessarily Miles Frazier at all this season. But still something I think, a little something that we should continue to monitor. But back here, this presser.
Yeah, we'll see where Frazier's at when he finally gets back with us, full time. And, even with Christian, you kind of take the same approach. Each guy might be a little bit different. I would say with Christian, at least we had the OTAs early, got to see a lot. And with Frazier, he didn't get as many reps there because it happened early. But, we'll see where he's at. We'll take it one day at a time, try to get, first off, we'll try to knock the rust off of him for a while and get back to your football legs, and that's one thing. You can train all you want for this game. It's like, that's why there is training camp. There's that first week or two is all about, can I get my legs to be football ready? But you got to be in shape, and that's what they're doing now with them. And he's been in the meetings, and he was already mentally pretty sharp as a rookie coming in, so that's going to be one thing you're not so concerned with. But again, until you get in that live action, we can all do board works or on the film and say, hey, I blocked that guy, this communication. But when the bullets are really flying out there and things move and the front moves and coverage and rotation and stuff like that, it's just how fast do you react and respond to that. So
Let me know if you guys can hear me. I'm not sure if you guys can still hear me yet. I don't understand why it went out, but it seems to me that the audio went out for some odd reason. But I'm going to walk away from this, man. I got everything done the way I wanted to get done. I'm going to apologize to everybody for the audio down the stretch, but I guarantee you, I told you guys some real good stuff. Until next time, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for everybody. Lions Pride.